The edge of summer has turned the ocean choppy and misanthropic, and the skies miserably gray. The boardwalk prophetess lured you into her tent with a promise to read a fortune for free. Seems like business has slowed to a crawl already. Before you lie the instruments of her profession. There's tarot cards, Rider-Waite, but also Marseille for traditionalists, rosary beads and costume jewelry, and of course, the centerpiece, a great glass globe. With practiced theatricality, she goes directly for the crystal ball, letting her eyes unfocus as though she can see a great distance into it. She brings up names, places, asks if you've known someone called John, if you have a relative in Newark. You'll latch on to what she says, and together you dance towards some insights about your romantic prospects. It's relieving to meet an honest charlatan instead of the ghouls and ghasts of the road. You might even say you're having fun, until she abruptly stops talking. "Your eyes," she says, her voice suddenly drained of the bassy drama that was her stock in trade. "You've met him. You've seen him, too. You carry him with you." The words that come out of your mouth are not your own. They seem unwilling or unable to form properly out of a human throat. They're more like snarls, warning noises of a vicious animal. The glass globe shatters. Your vision is hazy, and your body is not your own. "You came far to get away from me," the voice lodged inside you says. "But this one has a way of wandering." The fortune teller has collapsed, cowering. "Consider your debt to me repaid." When you come to your senses, you're lying face down on the rough wood of the boardwalk, sore and weak. An empty patch of wood, cleaner than the surrounding planks, is all that remains of the fortune teller's tent. You emerge from the underbrush and find yourself at the edge of a field. A farmhouse sits at the other end. Close by, large family is tending to the plants together. They pause and regard you, almost nervously. "Hello there?" the grandmother asks. The family is almost too nice to you. When you ask for water, they don't even let you walk to the pump by the house. A child runs back to the shed for a folding chair, and they serve you lemonade in a glass among the lettuce heads. Halfway through your glass, you notice someone moving furtively down by the house. The cuffs of his white shirt are stained red. The father sees your look and shifts to block your view. His eyes are bright, and his teeth are bared in something like worry. "How do you like your lemonade?" His wife arrives with a bag full of sandwiches for you, and the whole family ushers you back into the woods, waving, wishing you well. You take one look back over your shoulder. The man by the wall is gone. Faded shotgun houses sit in rows under the tall shadows of smokestacks. A worker in full uniform hollers from a porch. "Hey, traveler, throw me inside. Got some literature here." As you shut the door, the man glances out the window and draws the shades. "Landlord toss you out? Ha! Don't mind me, it's none of my business." He pries up a floorboard with a crowbar. You glance over the man's shoulder to see inside the compartment canned goods, a pile of leaflets, the wood stock of a rifle. He replaces the board and stands. He hands you a can of whole potatoes, then a leaflet which reads, "No evictions, no fascists, no hunger." "Headed back to the shop, but we'll have a Bible meet soon." Nothing wrong with that. Careful in those boxcars, traveler, and take care of your neighbor." His smile lights up the room, or rather the cab of the locomotive. Folks gather round as he holds the pull cord. He's a showman through and through. "You'll want to cover your ears now for this next part." Sure doesn't help much. Engineer pulls that chain and the whistle blasts inside your skull. He just smiles through it all. Man must be half deaf. A round of applause erupts from the small crowd. He passes out bubble gum to the shell-shocked kids, half of them in awe, half in tears. "Remember now who gets you there on the advertised. Casey Jones." Everyone's all talk as they head back to their seats. That engineer sure is handsome. Gosh, and that whistle sounded just like a whippoorwill, didn't it? Ain't this the way to travel? The soldier sits in the dirt with his legs splayed out, like a child would sit. Beneath the tattered fabric of his antique uniform, several open wounds fester in the hot sun. "Lend a hand, traveler?" You kneel in front of the soldier. His body is marked with bullet holes, along with deeper wounds that could be from knives or bayonets. Maggots squirm inside the raw, red flesh. "About time I earned an amputation. You seen any bluebellies around?" The soldier leans in, uncomfortably close to inspect your features. Were his pupils solid white before now? He tilts his head, narrows his eyes, sniffs you. "What are you, stranger?" "Where you going, Yankee?" A bowie knife flies past your head, so close the wind tickles your ear. It sticks in a tree with a solid thump that clears the squirrels and birds out of the branches. When you look back, the wounded soldier's nowhere to be found. He's small for his age, boy of 13 or so, sitting on an upturned bucket by the side of a tiny wedge of farmland. The dog, as though by contrast, is massive, an enormous yellow-brown mutt. He's called Rover, the boy explains. "Pa says he can't come with us. West." You notice the Model A truck on the yard, piled high with furnishings and trunks and bags and knots of rope to tie it all together. And upon all that, too, yet more dust and grit. "Pa says it has to be better." With one toe tip, he scratches a parabola on the dead, dry ground. "Pa says we can't afford to feed Rover no more." You can't tell where the blonde of the dog's coat ends and the omnipresent dust begins. Same goes for the boy's hair. "Will you take him?" Rover follows you eagerly after you feed him the tiniest sliver of jerky. But a few hours later, he snaps to attention, as though hearing some distant noise your ears can't catch. The last you see of him are the markings left by his dirty pelt on the leaves of the underbrush.
Evening there. You looking for a sermon or just a chat? Don't really matter, frankly. First thing I ever learned behind the pulpit is that every homily is just a conversation. Ain't as one-sided as you might think either. Preachers ain't shepherds, they're cowboys. They gotta run with the flock, keep them directed without fencing them in. So how about you take a seat and guide us somewhere? Lately, my journey's been pretty ordinary, just walking church to church. What about you? Been on any adventures? You've got a pretty wild life, you know that? You ever notice how different folk think about the future in entirely different ways? Talk to a man up in Harlem, Hat Man, sells hats, and he's talking about quarters and fiscal years. Talk to one of them boys at the Shaw School, they start yapping about automation and aeroplanes. But when I talk to my auntie down in Macon, she can't see past her next payday. Some folks don't have the privilege of the future. You must have seen some pretty wild stuff on the road. What's the most exciting thing you've seen? Tearjerkers need a little more truth in them, I think. Sadness? No. Preacher ain't allowed to be sad, except for a certain sort of sadness. You understand? We have to be salve. We have to lift up the community, challenge injustice. Folks like me can't be sad for ourselves when it's the congregation that really hurts. Hey, do you have any spooky campfire tales? Feels appropriate out here, right? That's how it is, huh? Well, maybe you ain't seen as much of this world as I have. Travel? Oh, I travel. Moving's in my blood. Pops traveled all over to wrestle. And even after I stepped out on my own, I kept moving. I've been everywhere. Chicago, New York, Atlanta, Houston, Los Angeles. Paris. I even been to Paris. I've been everywhere. Chicago, New York, Atlanta, Houston, Los Angeles. Paris. I even been to Paris. You must have seen some pretty wild stuff on the road. What's the most exciting thing you've seen? I'm not sure that one moves me. Family? My family was my father. Pops was a catch wrestler. You know, a real fighting man. Used to drag me around, town to town, brawling with whatever local pretty boy they'd put in the ring. He lost a lot, frankly, but had a mean crucifix lock. Anyway, why don't you tell me a scary story? You must have heard some good ones. Well, shock and peril ain't always exciting, you know. Authority? People look to me for leadership, but I tell them that real leadership comes from community. The best preachers are cornerstones, not prophets. The night is over, and I've got walking to do. There's a church waiting for me up the road. And after that, I'm going up this way. Where are you going? Think our paths might cross? I liked our talk, and I think there's more I'd tell you about the preacher's life if we had longer to chat.